Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to speak on the Social Security Long-Term Residential Care Budget Measures Amendment Bill, because this is a responsible bill, this is a realistic bill, this is a fair bill, and this bill certainly ensures the sustainability of long-term residential care in New Zealand with the changing demographies that we have. And there we have Trevor Mallard saying rubbish, and how absolutely typical this is of the Labour over there, who undoubtedly are in cloud Labour land once again. They've totally forgotten. They have totally, Planet Labour as well. Planet Labour as well. They've totally forgotten about the global recession. They've totally forgotten about the Christchurch earthquakes. They've totally forgotten about the unpredictability of the situation in Europe right round and elsewhere. They are determined to spend more, to tax more and to borrow more if they possibly can. That's what they would do. And Mr. Speaker, only last week was I with their former leader, the Honourable Phil Goff, overseas there, and it just does bring back to me the absolute reality of how lucky we are here in New Zealand with responsible government, with stable government and with enlightened government. And Mr. Speaker, that's what this is all about. Now, Mr. Speaker, we've heard from this tawdry Labour government that this bill has been kept secret. Well, this measurement has not been kept secret from the sector. Government ministers briefed the sector just prior to the budget, and neither aged care or Grey Power have put out press releases against this measure. And I think it very important that indeed the opposition does realise this. Mr. Speaker, it is important to realise that from July the 1st, the change will take, whereby we will begin, or the government will begin, adjusting the asset threshold for rest home care subsidies at the rate of inflation. And it's because it comes in on July the 1st that it is important that we have urgency at this stage of events. And we'll be using the Consumer Price Index because that's a realistic and rational way to ensure that there is an appropriate adjustment. And I looked back at the Honourable Ruth Dyson's speech when she introduced the bill in 2004. And of course, somehow, she plucked out of the air a $10,000 increase that was going to continue on to 2005 and 2025. The reality of that is that in the 7 years, for a single person, this has increased from 45,000 to 115,000, more than doubled. By far more than doubled, and that is just unsustainable, Mr. Speaker. And in these times, it is quite unworkable and unrealistic. So we have over there a party that is prepared in these difficult economic times to pluck something out of the air, have no rationale whatsoever as to the number. Those were the days when they had surpluses, where they could have been using a much more prudential view, long-term view, as to get New Zealand well prepared for the future. But no, they didn't. They were just prepared to pluck this number out of the ether, and away it went. And consequently, we have seen this amount more than double in 7 short years, which is totally unrealistic. So we are simply slowing the rate of increase in recognition of tight times and an ageing population. We're making sure we can afford subsidising the cost of residential care for an increasing number of older New Zealanders who need it. And when they talk about 4.5 million, Mr. Speaker, in the first year, over 4 years, this actually amounts to 34.5 million. That's a substantial amount of money. Every $1 million counts. It mightn't to that wasteful Labour opposition But for us, it's absolutely important. Mr. Speaker, this is a responsible bill, this is a realistic bill, this is a fair bill, and this indeed will sustain long-term residential care into the future.
Good speech. Good speech.
I call the Honourable Ruth Dyson.